pop this over to Dell. He's going to be sharing the screen with you, and he's going to be speaking specifically on a little bit better understanding of club and association fees and where we're going with that. So Dell, take it away.
Thanks, Helen. So let's start by having me share my screen.
The whole thing.
Okay, can we all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I thought I'd start by talking about club assessments and the association HOA fees. And generally, most of us refer to all of this as an HOA fee. The difference here that I'll try and outline is you have two parts. The club assessments have to do with the assets or facilities that all of the villagers use here. And everyone pays the club assessment. So the club assessment has to do with your Comcast and the facilities like the Kribari Plaza and the clubhouse, golfing. And the club assessments are broken up into three parts: the club operating, club reserves, and capital improvement. And as I mentioned, everyone pays the club assessment, and the single family homeowners only pay the club assessment.
Hello?
The association HOA fees, this is specific to owners of condos and villas. So the association fees or homeowners fees are based on what's called AFA. And some of you may have heard this before. AFA stands for adjusted floor area. And it's basically based on the square footage of your home. Now, as we go through this, what you'll find is on the club side, you have the operating and reserves. And on the association side, you have the operating and reserves. And basically, let's go to the next screen here. On the operating side, this has to do with your daily maintenance. So everything from your landscaping, the trash costs, PG&E, repair and maintenance, legal fees. You hear a lot about water and insurance. That all comes out of the operating budget, okay? The reserves are really monies put aside, or if you will, savings put aside for future repair and replacement of our assets. So in your condo and your villa, you probably bought a condo or villa because the villages takes care of painting, making sure your roofs are okay, the general structure and the maintenance of that structure. So they handle all of that. Whereas if you're a single family homeowner, you need to take care of all of that. You need to pay for your own trash. You need to, if your roof needs to be repaired, you handle all of that. So that's the biggest difference between the club and the association. And within the association, what you have is the budget, if you will, is put together by management and staff. They estimate what the costs are, and they calculate that for the year. They come up with a budget, and they determine by AFA, or each person's structure or square footage, what the cost is. Now, what that does is it makes things a little confusing, because if you look at the club, everyone pays the same amount. Okay, it's roughly $360 something. On the association side, if you have a condo or villa, it varies by your village. And if you think about that, the reason for that is each of our districts or village, Del Lago, Olivas, Fairways, was built at different times. So the painting was done at different times, and the roofs were set up at different times. So The timing of the replacement of that varies from village to village. And because they base it on AFA or the adjusted floor, what you get is if you're in a larger home than a smaller one, your dues are different. So that's why if you talk to your neighbor and they're in a different model, even though they're in the same village, their dues are different. If you're in a 2,000 square foot condo and you're talking to someone in a different village, their dues are different. Okay, so that's the general difference between the association and the club. So for I'm guessing many of you may have heard that the upcoming budget, fiscal year 22, we're all seeing a reduction. And a large part of that reduction is due to all of you, all of us, and VFC. Villages for Change has put out a lot of information, has gathered a lot of people. We've written letters to the board, pulse letters. We've been on Nextdoor, and we've created enough noise that it's caused management and the boards to reassess what our dues are. We showed that in the last 4 years, the dues were rising 6-7%. And many places we've seen as much as 20-30% increase over the last 4 years. Well, if you look at the planned budgets of last year and the prior year, there was another increase for this
Is that
year.
the thing they're talking?
No, different.
So
Somebody's,
Not
Yeah.
muted.
yeah, somebody's not muted. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dale.
oh, no problem. So what has happened though is because of everyone's voice, because of Villagers for Change, they've heard us and they've done a reduction, not a large one, but it's a start. So it's a matter of where do we go next? You know, what is next for all of us? Because this small reduction is not enough. And if you think about it, there is so much more to do. We need to look at where we are with our staff. Do we have too many people working here? Do we have a good set of processes to get better competitive bids? Because if you think about it, our projects at times have been very large and people question, why are we spending so much money to do certain things? And a lot of it has to do with the way we get our bids, the competitiveness of that. So there's a lot of work to be done. And what we should not do is say, oh, okay, we've gotten a reduction and now I'm going to be happy, because this is just a small reduction and it's 1 year. And as we go forward into the future, it's very easy for this to be increased again. Because what we've found, as you all have heard, is it's easy for management and staff to raise the fees as opposed to managing the costs better. So I think
Okay, so
Helen?
what, yeah, so, okay, I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. And really, I think what Dell has been saying is that there's a couple of key issues. One is your square footage plus a small percentage of your garage, which I know we all understand and we all know, but that there are two kinds of cost adjustments that can be made. And I think what we are asking for is we're asking you, all of you, are you guys comfortable with a $10 or $20 reduction in your HOAs each month and feel that that's something to go woohoo and celebrate about? Because in essence, that's going to give you an opportunity to go out of the villages and go to Starbucks and get a cup of coffee. That's all what that's going to give you. And so we need to take a long look at this and say, you know, systematically, what can we do that can drive those processes down and the costs associated with them? And what Del, I believe I heard you just say that the first thing is that we can look at our our salaries and our volume of staff. And then number one, at what rate do they receive their increases? Because I don't know about you guys, but the last few years when I was working before I retired, I was not getting 3 and 4% raises. And I know we're not getting that with our Social Security. Yet that seems to be the trend here within the villages. Plus, we do pay into their 401k, whether they support that or not. So there are charges. And this isn't a us-them thing, but we don't want people getting rich on us when we're still trying to survive. So the first thing I think we're calling for is to say $20 a month, thank you, but no thanks. We need to do something more. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I want a $200 reduction per month. And what would that take to do? And so we need to start thinking out of the box. So Del, could you specifically speak to not just the low hanging fruit, which is the easy stuff that we could do, but what long-term, like how do we adjust things like our landscaping and a few things like that? So first part, what's the low hanging fruit we could take a few things off of? And then secondarily, mindset wise, how do we revamp and direct our management and our board of directors to look at the cost reductions that can happen on a larger scale?
So I think there are a couple things. First of all, I would take a hard look at our salaries and wages. I believe in the last session, Ron mentioned that we had something like $9 million of salary and wages, and it was about 60% of our overall expense line, which is significant. Do we really need as many people as we have? And one of the things that makes it really difficult is it's hard to just figure out how many people we actually have doing whatever it is they're doing. You pay something like $4 million overall for landscaping, and it's a hefty amount. But one of the things they keep mentioning is our water costs keep going up. So maybe we need to take a look at landscape management. Recently in the Villager, they published how we grabbed the lowest bidder on the landscape contract. Well, that's great. I'm glad we did that. However, what are we doing strategically in landscape management? Are we, assessing the amount of water we need to keep things green?
Yeah.
Are we using drought-resistant plants?
But larger than that, Del, I think I think water is one that most people understand, because I believe almost every DAC has a really good model at trying to address the concerns of water management. But I think there are many other issues. I have a question now from Val Smith. Can you?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Thank you, Del. And I just wanted to point out something that I think that the boards and management should have in their minds when they're thinking about HOAs and reductions and everything. If we have significant reductions in HOAs along the lines of $200 a month or $300 a month in some places, I mean, that's money that can change the experience for some people who live in the villages. It's money that will help them relieve their mind of if they can pay their bills, and if what will the next few years bring. And I think that management, I think it's very valid to worry about HOAs and how it affects your neighbors and maybe yourself. I have already experienced in the short time I've lived here, good people who became good friends and neighbors, and people who played golf with me or we swam in the pool. They're gone. They left because and they cited HOAs as being the thing that kind of the last straw. And the other thing about HOAs, if you cut HOAs, if I had $200 more, I might be tempted to return that to the villages in the form of going to the bistro more often, or playing more golf. You know, some people, a lot of people are budgeted for those things, and they have their, but they cannot. Not everybody can afford to go to the bistro every day or every week, and not everybody can play as much golf as perhaps they would like to. So I think that the management should not see that as sort of lost money, but I think it will come back in many ways in terms of support for the things that do bring money into the villages. So that's all I wanted to say.
So I think with that, I'm hearing, Marcy Boyles.
One of the biggest costs here, from what I understand, is insurance. Because of the fires, they had to cobble together 3 or 4 different insurance companies to provide the protection we've been expecting, and wondered if that's been looked into. Del, were you part of that?
So,
Del, Marcy's sound is a little muffled, but she's asking about the insurance costs and what you're seeing in trends of how things are happening with that.
so a couple of things, or one primarily, and I know everyone might feel differently about this, but one of the things I would question is, do we really need the earthquake insurance? Earthquake insurance is really, really expensive. And for me, I've never purchased it. If you look at the deductible and the cost of the insurance for earthquake insurance, it's really high. And, you know, I have heard several people say perhaps instead of purchasing earthquake insurance, we might be better off just putting money aside as a reserve. You know, there are a number of things that you could do. The second thing I sort of wonder is how competitive are the bids on insurance, because we're dealing with one broker. And, you know, if you look back about 3-4 years ago when our insurance really went up, yes, there were fires, and yes, there were a number of things that could have caused it, but how competitive is the process? Because I know for myself, when I look at insurance, I'll go and I'll talk to State Farm and, you know, all various places, Allstate and AAA and all the places, and I'll get bids, and then I'll choose the best one. And it's not just based on price, but, you know, a lot of different things. And so I'm a little curious on how competitive we are in getting good insurance rates. So I don't
Great.
know if that answers your question, but
Okay. Val